Oh yeah, sexy biscuits. Nice.
Long was 1975. A YouTuber is on the rise. Reviewing games late at night and sometimes friends used to bug him. Long was 1975.
Hey YouTube, Long Boys Post 1975, and welcome to another another nostalgic memories of video. I mean, I could do these all days. I should probably learn to talk before I start doing these all days. I could do these, you know, all day. I'm not saying I live in the past. You know, obviously I'm a retro gamer. You know, comics, movies, stuff like that. They're all very much I have more of an attachment to the old school ones. But I mean, I've got. It's like comfort food, isn't it? I've got all my priorities covered as an adult, you know, my bills covered, car insurance, tax, I can eat and shit like that. So, you know, why can't I indulge myself in looking backwards? You know, what's wrong with that? You know, you're an individual, do whatever makes you happy and screw what everyone else says. And I like to be nostalgic. Particularly at this time of year. I don't know what it is about it being cold, getting dark early, being dark when you get up. It kind of reminds me of going to school as a kid. So that's kind of tied into this, and it's something I've wanted to talk about for ages, and I've touched upon it at times very briefly in other videos, and even then that would have been years and years and years, at least 5 years ago. But I want to talk about my nostalgic memories of after school children's TV. That may sound like a bit of a mouthful, but that's what it was. Now, Idrob, my age, born in the 70s, because the TV you got to watch, and not just after school TV, but, you know, Saturday morning and Sunday morning kids TV, is very dependent upon when you were born, and the people who would have been key to you in that period, whether it's people who presented, you know, Blue Peter and stuff like that, or people in the broom cupboard, which we'll touch upon if you're not from the United Kingdom, or you're not old like me, later, then you're going to have a different memory of, or a different individual that is a very strong part of the childhood TV you got to watch. Personalities as such, I would say. Now, the difference between after school, at least for me, being born, you know, the mid-70s, after school children's TV and Saturday morning children's TV was, Saturday morning children's TV was, they brought out the blockbusters. It was always cartoons based on toys, you know, whether it was Mask, Brave Star, alright, He-Man showed up in the weekly one, but yeah, Transformers, things like that, Action Force or G.I. Joe, as people outside the United Kingdom knew it before the 90s. They were the staple of Saturday morning and Sunday morning children's TV. Now, that's not to say we didn't get epic cartoons in after school TV, but they never really seemed to be, with the exception of He-Man. I'm probably forgetting a few, so if you're, you know, of my age group, please leave a comment down below and let me know. They always, you know, they're epic, like 28-week you know, weekly episodes and stuff like that. But it was never really sort of toy-based. But that didn't detract from it. Now, school for me, and obviously this is different for every other country, I really don't know how after-school TV worked outside of the United Kingdom. Saturday morning TV, different thing, because that's a staple worldwide, isn't it? So I went to primary school starting in what, I don't know, 1980. I went to secondary school in 1987. The strongest memories, and probably because of the age I can retain more of, is the last few years of primary school and the first few years of secondary school. But we had two, now you went to school, back then you finished school, at least in the United Kingdom, at 3:30 in the afternoon, but children's TV would not start till 4 o'clock, and it would only run to 5:30, and then there would be like a padding half-hour show of some sort that would take you up to the news. But then, for some reason, the school day got shortened by 15 minutes. Now, as a kid, to me, that was like excruciating. It was bad enough I had to wait half an hour for my TV. But now it was 3/4 of an hour. And obviously, the only two TV channels, well, we only had 3 TV channels, 4 maybe at a push. You know, once I was at secondary school, there were 4, but Channel 4 did not show. BBC didn't really, 2 didn't really show children's TV. It was BBC One, Children's BBC and Children's ITV. But Children's BBC, I piss and moan and complain about the BBC now, and I do think they're out of touch bias corporation. It shouldn't be allowed to be a mandatory fee. It should be subscription. But that's not about this, because back then, as a kid, I wasn't aware of, you know, what a horrible corporation they were. But this isn't a video about their sins. So it was the broom cupboard, and it was called the broom cupboard because it was literally a cupboard with pictures on the back wall that kids sent in, stuffed toys, various toys in front of it, and he had a monitor that would count programs down. You could see it do the swirly effect, the 3, 2, 1 to the left of him, and obviously he looked straight at a camera, one camera in front of him, and it was the one I remember the most is Philip Schofield and then Andy Crane. And you know, both went on to other things. It's like they were very young when they started. It was like you're cutting your teeth on being a TV presenter. You would do it in children's television, and more so on children's BBC in the broom cupboard. But they would be the link between all the shows, and they were great. You really, really felt like they were a friend. They had great personalities. They were warm. They read the letters out you sent, put on the gifts, because at one point it was all about knitting jumpers and sending them to Philip Schofield. And then he would like bridge the gap between the shows, and the shows were amazing. You had stuff like Banana Man, you know, it was a mixture of British, American, and then collaboration. But I just remember these epic, epic long story arcs of stuff like Ulysses 31. That was an after-school TV show, and you couldn't miss a week. It was, you know, and we didn't, and it was just, I don't know what kids TV is like now. I don't even know there is Saturday morning TV, but after school TV, really not sure. Probably not, because you've got your own kids TV channel now, haven't you? CBeebies, which is kids all the time, which to me would be wrong. Part and parcel of what made children's television as a kid back in the day so engaging and you know, and important to you was the fact that it was sparse, you know, it was sporadic. You had your slot every day, but you only had an hour and a half of it. You know, I think maybe for me now, it is this less is more, and I think kids these days are spoiled, but I don't know if I would have wanted it all the time back then. You know, an hour and a half after school, an hour and a half to 2 hours Saturday morning, an hour and a half on a Sunday morning. That was enough. That's all I needed. Like, would it have lost its charm now? I don't know. And plus, modern kids TV is so politically correct and health and safety based, it's embarrassing. But yeah, so you had stuff like Ulysses 31, you had Around the World in 80 Days with Phileas Fogg, but it was done with animals, and he was a lion. But it stuck close to the book, you know, maybe kind of a little bit dumbed down, but not as much as shit nowadays. Stuck very close to the book. You had another one, my favourite, and these were kind of like almost anime quality. They were collaborations, sometimes between French and Japanese studios, and sometimes between Japanese and American studios. Then there was the Mysterious Cities of Gold. Now that was epic. I've looked up trying to buy that on Amazon, and that goes for a pretty penny. But that was unbelievable. That was just so epic. Yeah, I mean, if you remember this, let me know. I'd love to know what you think. Again, this video or this waffle is very specifically based on being the same age as me. But then obviously the staple was Blue Peter, which is, I don't know if it's going anymore, is it? But you could argue out of its time now, but back then it was still a big deal. 3 people doing a somewhat semi-educational show to charity drives, how to make stuff, educational, you know, skits on, you know, certain locations, certain events that were happening, museums, etc., stuff like that, anniversaries, you know, wars and things. That was, I used to watch that. That was brilliant. Then there was John Craven's News Round that was bought to make news relevant to kids, and done in such a way that it was topics and stories that they would be interested in, and done in a manner where it wasn't patronising them or assuming that they had a massive base of knowledge on each set subject. Just a 5-minute news programme every day. That was amazing. You know, I might have to go on CBeebies just out of curiosity and see what the fuck it's like now, but I can't imagine it, you know, nostalgia goggles aside, that it's a patch on any of this. I mean, the D'Artagnan and the 3 Muskehounds. I mean, also, I'm not going to sing it, but that gets to a point. The intros of these shows were amazing. They were so memorable. They were all songs. And then what the host would do, Philip Schofield, and later on, Andy Crane, they would make a point of announcing that on a specific day, they were going to sing the intro live over the top, you know, like on camera to the show, and they'd have the lyrics, and they'd all get you to join in, which sounds incredibly stupid. But you got to remember, when you're like 10, excuse me, that is epic sauce. And they did that, Philip Schofield did it for, was it Mysterious Cities of Gold, and D'Artagnan, and was it, I could be wrong with this, and Andy Crane did it for Ulysses 31. And also some of these cartoons were quite adult, you know, quite You know, like Ulysses 31, because it was Greek mythology. Some of the stuff in there was terrifying, especially when they got to Styx and all the citizens were dead, so they couldn't look at you, so they travelled backwards. That scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. Now, it wasn't just things like this. You had, you know, UK home-produced shows as well. Now, I'm going to rattle off a few. There was Seaview, who the girl in later on became the presenter on Blue Peter, Yvette Fielding, and now does that ghost show. You know, the staged one. But yes, this is where she cut it. It was a drama about this little bed and breakfast, comedy drama. Some of the kids' comedy was amazing. Yeah, it ran, you know, by her parents, and she always feuded with her brother. Then you had Jossie's Giants, which is about a youth football team, a really young youth football team. And this guy Jossie, was he an ex-professional footballer or something? Managed them because they used to be the Grasshoppers. And then it became Jossie's Giants because they were appalling, and that was, you know, comedic, but it still had really strong storylines and heartfelt sentiment in it. And because you were forced to play football, which I personally loved at school, and we're in these teams which would compete against other schools, you know, during school time, parents would get together and drive you to another school, you know, in many cases up to 15 miles away, because that was the catchment zone for schools back then. You know, these things were brilliant. Then you had Johnny Briggs, and more often than not, they were based on books. Johnny Briggs was based on books, and that was just, you know, just a young child's growing up and adventures in life. The Machine Gunners, which is a very famous kids novel about a kid who finds a crash plane in World War II, takes the machine gun, builds a bunker on the cliff front to stop the German invasion if it ever comes. Sorry, spoilers! And then a German parachutist from a shot down plane crashes, and they end up hiding him, you know, because it's a tale of humanity and stuff like that. And it turns out, again, spoilers, they built their bunker, well, incredibly well crafted, on the wrong cliff. These things were, like I said, I don't know with this stuff like this now, but these were big deals. They really pulled, you know, the stuff out. And then at Christmas, they really pulled things out, like the Box of Delights. That was shown in kids' TV. That wasn't like The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, which was shown on a Sunday evening. So I miss all of this, you know. I mean, well, when I say I miss it, I'm fond of it, because, you know, it's all on there on YouTube, it's all there on Amazon, it's all on there on Cuff, Partlocker. Oh my, sorry. Chesty, it's winter. But these things were great. So it was a mixture of the, you know, the comedy, you know, the animation, these heartfelt, you know, dramas, then the educational nature of Newsround and Blue Peter, and all tied together by the presenter who did it. And then I do remember that, you know, many of these presenters on their last day, when they were leaving to go on to some other aspect or career in TV, got really emotional and often cried. And, you know, people may just, as a throwaway comment now, who don't understand this or didn't grow up when I grew up, just laugh at that and think it's stupid. But it wasn't. That's why they felt like a friend and not just someone on the TV. You really had a connection, you know. They really tied this whole, it was like your hour and a half after school. You felt like they were talking to you, you know, and you felt part of a bigger audience. It never felt like just someone going through the motions, you know. Just, you know, being the anchor between, you know, the VT guy, basically, between these, you know, various and different shows. Now, my main memories of BBC, there was stuff on ITV. They had the Chucky series, was based on children's books, and they had He-Man the Masters of the Universe, which I absolutely loved. But to my mind and my memory, all the decent shit was on BBC Children's TV, not ITV. I mean, obviously I'll be forgetting some stuff and missing some stuff along the way. What was We Are the Champions on? That was an odd show. That was kids from various different schools going to compete in these sporting events, which you will watch. But as a kid, I only, look it up if you're not from England, type in We Are the Champions. But we all watched it because we just wanted to see it. After they all won, at the end, the main presenter would just go, away you go! Because the last events were all held in the swimming pool, and they got jumped into the swimming pool, and we were all so jealous because they had all these inflatables, these slides, rafts, everything. Every kid I knew just watched that show just to see the shit they got to play with at the end. But then, you know, still a big part of my childhood was watching it, maybe for the wrong reasons. Then you had Record Breakers with the late great Roy Castle. That was amazing. It was just a show hosted, and he was one of the most charismatic people on TV ever, absolutely ever. And it was a show about people breaking records, and they were holding attempts to break records, which may sound boring, but it was amazing because it was stuff like the longest domino rally and stuff like that, you know, stupid stuff like Baths for the Beans. But it was just compelling, and it was great TV, you know. And I also had Norris McGuirter on there. And before that, was it his brother who passed away before Norris McGuirter did? Who was basically, his thing was, or his shtick was, he knew every single record in the Guinness Book of Records at that point. And halfway through the show, kids from the audience would get to ask him random questions about who holds what this record is, and what record, etc., etc., etc. And he knew it. He knew it all. We watched it for that. That blew me away. It blew me away. And then there's the dark side of it, where you have people like Rolf Harris. You know, yeah, I'm not going to go into that, but that show was amazing. And then look what a monster he turned out to be. You know, I guess you can't have a perfect, you know, all-encompassing program, you know, full of rainbows and sunshine without there always being that element. But that's human nature and human life, sadly. We should not let it taint our memories of these things. But then you had the other artist, the one I absolutely love, which was Tony Hart, and he did the gallery. And he was a phenomenal artist, an absolutely fantastic artist, very soft-spoken, charismatic, more like an uncle figure or a grandfather figure. And he'd show you how to do these amazingly simplistic, you know, pictures that would build up and build up and build up with stuff like just taking half of a potato and dipping it in different colours. And it was the first appearance of Arden Animation, when they had like little comedic sketches of animated stop motion plasticine in the middle of the show. And then, and this bit gutted me because I never got on it, but then I never liked what they said was, he would host this parkour, and he had a janitor on there for comic relief as well, Mr. So-and-so the janitor. But yeah, he would do this thing, which is this week, these are the pictures that the kids have sent to me. If you see your picture, you will be sent a prize. And we always used to watch it because we always wanted to see if our picture would get in there. It never did. It absolutely never did. But even as a kid, it did used to annoy me when it goes, we regret that we cannot return your pictures. What, even if I include a stamped addressed envelope? You lazy bastards. That's all you ever had to do, and everything else was include a stamped addressed envelope. But then there was the Grandaddy shows that ran for years. It was almost like the training ground for the soap opera EastEnders. So you're from Britain, you know exactly what I'm going to talk about. And that was Grange Hill, a show that was introduced in the 70s that was groundbreaking because there was no sort of soap opera that was relevant to kids. That, you know, touched upon, you know, abuse, bullying, you know, drugs. Hell, someone overdosed from heroin in this, and it was a kids show. And yeah, it was set in a school. It started in the 70s. My favourite period was that with Tucker Jenkins. But that's a testament as well, because that ran up to what, early 2000, late 90s, and eventually was deemed not relevant anymore, which I think is a shame. Maybe computers and stuff like that and gaming consoles killed this for children. But there was some heavy themes in that. There really was, and we loved it. But there was also great comedic and camaraderie in it with the different, because the cast would change every year, as it would do with the school, with people coming in and people leaving at the other end. But yeah, a kid overdosed from heroin. Some kid died from a brain aneurysm. Yeah, there's a whole addiction story with a character called Zamo being addicted to heroin, which was absolutely unheard of, and it was so, you know, groundbreaking at the time that these kids were asked to be flown to the White House under, you know, the Nancy Reagan Just Say No, because they ended up singing a song about it, Just Say No program to keep kids off drugs, because this was beyond anything that had been done in the States at the time. And when they got there, and it turned out that, you know, half of them were high in the White House. They were just doing it because it was part of the show. And then it went to, was it, I don't know, Yankee Stadium or something, and had to sing their song at the start. And apparently half of them were wearing glasses because they were high then. There's irony. But the point is, this program dealt with really adult things. Put it this way, people died in this show a lot. You know, and I'm mainly touching upon BBC Children's BBC, you know, but that was my go-to area. And I'm just trying to think of a few more shows. But, you know, it just all blurs into this one wonderful memory of how much I enjoyed coming home. Really did look forward after school to children's, you know, television. I really did. Oh yeah, what I mentioned about the half-hour, excuse me, Windy Pops. I was going to say the half-hour block between the end of children's TV and the start of the news, which always started at 6 o'clock, was a weird one, because it was, you could argue that it was children's TV sometime, but it wasn't at that point. There were game shows like, what was the one about computers where they got to play, and we only watched it for this, instead of being asked general knowledge questions, and halfway through they got to play events from Hypersports, the arcade machine, and then later on Paperboy. I can't remember what that was. First Class. That's it. That was one of the events, and more often than not, they just show episodes of the Flintstones, which I like because that felt like a kids show, even though you could argue that the Flintstones was the first animated sitcom. episodes of Charles in Charge. It was a really mixed bag. It's like the actual slot of having a presenter linking all the shows together would only last for an hour and a half, and then this was just filled with all kinds of random stuff in the vein of somewhat entertaining, somewhat educational, somewhat aimed at kids. Scratch the Flintstones with that one. But yeah, it was, I don't know, I have such warm, fond memories of it. And yeah, as always, I'd love to know what you think of it. I mean, particularly if you grew up in my period, like they always have these mascots, wouldn't they, children's BBC, such as Ed the Duck, who went on to, these were puppets, and they pretended they were real, and they talked to them. Gordon the Gopher, both of those went on to Saturday morning TV. And then what was the monkey with one eye? Was it Hogan? Hogue? I don't know. But it was just all part and parcel of the suspending your, your woes and your worries for just an hour and a half a day, and just sit down with a bloke on the screen or a woman, because it was a mixture of both, and they all went on to other things. Almost all of these male and female children TV presenters are now a staple part of modern TV, whether it's on morning TV or daytime TV. This is where they cut their teeth. But yeah, particularly outside the United Kingdom, I'd love to know how children's after-school TV works in North America, because your schools ended at what, 2:30? Lucky bastards. Yeah, but anyway, nostalgic memories of childhood TV after school. It was, sometimes I still go on YouTube, because you can look it up. Type in the broom cupboard, particularly if you're from outside the United Kingdom, it'll blow you away. But yeah, just such great warm memories, and a fondness of this every time I think of it. So as always, I'd love to know what your memories are, if you're from my period, or if you're from earlier or later on, or not even from this country. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later. I feel the need to do the end of Grange Hill then, which is